Morning. Well, just afternoon. Hi. How are you? Righty then. England. All preparation is complete now. We are in the build-up to the World Cup. The friendlies are out the way. The Nations League is out the way. What are England's prospects going into the World Cup? So we're almost going to give you a little bit of a preview about things that maybe have gone right, things that maybe have gone wrong, and maybe that sort of outlay of it. Okay, so let's talk about Gareth Southgate for starters then, because I've had my doubts with him from the first minute. 76 games in charge of England, 48 wins, 14 draws, 14 losses. On paper, it's not a horrendous sort of win rate. It's pretty good. But you have to take into account the quality of some of the teams that he's faced. And his inability to beat teams that are ranked in the top 15 of the world. And the top 15 of the world is only half of the competition that you're going to be facing in the World Cup. And actually very close to being half of what you would face in the Euros. So when it comes to playing against teams that are ranked in the top 15 of the world, now he's had 28 games against teams that are ranked in the top 15, and he's won only 7 of those, drawn 13, and lost 8, giving him a win percentage of 25%. His big results really have came against teams ranked outside of that top 15. Poorly ranked teams, if you like. Now, if you think about this in league terms, your top 15 is 3/4 of the league. So if you're winning most of your games, you're only winning 25% of your games in a league, and then you're beating the relegation fodder or teams from leagues below you. You wouldn't accept that if that was a league manager. You wouldn't. Well, anyway, this is his record against teams, if you like, outside that top league. 47 games managed, 39 wins, 4 draws, 4 losses, 86.67%. Results there are taken at 90 minutes and not including extra time and penalties. Now, to break down the teams that he's played in the top 15, here's who they are. We played Belgium 4 times, lost 3, won 1. Played Italy 4 times, won none, drawn 3, lost 1. Played Germany 5 times, won 1, drawn 3, lost 1. Played Croatia 4 times, won 2, drawn 2. Played Denmark 3 times, haven't won once, drawn twice, lost once. Played Spain 3 times. My notes are ballsed up here because it says won 1 and drawn 1. Played the Netherlands, won 1 and drawn 1. He's also beat the USA, drawn against Brazil and lost against France. That is not a record befitting of someone that should be the highest paid international manager in the world. And that's my opinion. But there's more to it than that. The way he sets his teams up is to not lose. Yet he's only won 25% of those games against those top sides. He sets a team up that is trying to be a counter-attacking team. But for me, it's a dysfunctional counter-attacking team because you're playing with people in Sterling and Foden that like having the ball at their feet. They're not really blistering, running behind kind of players. Sterling's not really a running behind player. Foden's not a running behind player. And Harry Kane certainly isn't a running behind player. You pair Harry Kane with someone like Marcus Rashford, you're going to get products because Marcus Rashford will run beyond. And if you're being a counter-attacking side, that's the sort of thing you want to exploit. The players he's selecting, like I wouldn't even say Sancho's a player that runs in behind. Sancho, a bit like Sterling, likes to run in between the lines. This seems to be his preferred 11, right? It's a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2. With Reece James, Stones, Dyer, Maguire, Shaw. That's his back 5. His midfield, Rice, Bellingham, Foden, and then Sterling and Kane are his attackers. There's a couple of prospects that I would like to see involved. Maybe Jacob Ramsey, Levi Colwill, potentially Harvey Elliott, that I just don't think are going to get a look in. It annoyed me this week with the likes of Ivan Toney getting called up, and even to an extent the likes of Trent getting called up and not featuring. The game against Germany, there was never going to be anything other than England finishing bottom of that group. That was the only thing on the cards at the time. The only thing on the cards was England finishing bottom of that group. Now, why not try something? Why not try a plan B? Why not see if your players can execute a different formation, a different game plan, a different way of playing football? Why not give the players an opportunity? Now, Southgate seems to go, I go with the players that I trust. Okay, I can understand that. But you don't give anybody else an opportunity to be trusted. Therefore, you're only going to play the players that you've played because nobody else gets a look in to try and prove you wrong. Last night was essentially a friendly. Why treat it anything other than an actual friendly? Why not? Why are we playing Harry Kane in both of those games? Why is he playing the full game? What more did you need to learn about him in that 90 minutes? Why aren't you selecting Ivan Toney? Now, Ivan Toney's probably not going to go to the World Cup, and Ivan Toney's a hell of a footballer. Harry Kane is not the most injury-resilient footballer in the world. What do you do if Harry Kane gets injured? Because let's be honest, there's a possibility of that. You then go in without Harry Kane because you don't trust anybody else, because you give nobody else the opportunity to see what they could do. Like I said, I'm not a massive England fan. Anyone who's watched me for a long time knows that. And I find it hard. I softened last year because I thought this team was a bit of a likeable team. But they haven't advanced anywhere. And watching the reaction of the media refuse to criticise things that require criticism, especially from a Manchester United fan perspective, where I see every single aspect of Manchester United being critiqued by this very same media that refuse to look at the negatives and only look at the positives when it comes to England. That level of hypocrisy pisses me off. And it's another reason that drives a wedge between Manchester United fans and English-born United fans from supporting England. The group opponents that England have got in the World Cup, they've got Iran, Wales and the USA. On paper, a very, very winnable group for England. The USA might be one of the less threatening teams in the second pot of the team, but England have failed to beat them in 2 previous World Cup meetings. Iran adds a little bit of a political intrigue. They beat USA in 98. They got a Croatian coach that's made them very, very solid. Certainly not spectacular. 10 games in the third qualifying phase yielded only 15 goals for, but only 4 against. England have never previously faced Wales at a World Cup finals, but they do have the recent Euros as experience. And against the home nations, England are shit. Drew 0-0 with Scotland in Euros. They beat Wales in the group stages of Euro 2016. But they've been caused problems by technically inferior teams. England haven't developed a style that's, like the fact that outside of the Germany game this week, England was cruising in on hours and hours and hours of football without an open play goal. And here's the thing, people keep pointing to those World Cup runs and that Euros run. The Germany game was genuinely impressive, and I did not think England would win that game. Genuinely impressive, and I'll give him some props for that. But they played nobody else. And they scraped through. They struggled and scraped through every single one of those games. And they played some pish. They played some absolute pish. You know Iran are going to low block you. Like if I was an England fan, I would be worried. Because I look at the likes of Iran and go, they can nil England. They can absolutely nil England. Without a shadow of a doubt, they could get a nil. USA could turn you over. I fully expect England to qualify from the group, but there's people thinking they're going to win all 3 of those games. Not a prayer. Not a prayer is that going to happen. Gareth Southgate had done nothing to earn this job except be decent with the England under-21s. England under-21s who have been quite successful in recent years. The 19s have won a Euros. You had the 17s, I think it was, win the World Cup. There's been some talent on the conveyor belt coming through. The problem with Southgate that he's got is a lot of those players that he was playing and blooding as under-21 manager have matured and now don't get a look in despite good form for their clubs. He's not picking players on form, which is the first thing he said he was going to do when he came into the job. There has to be someone. There has to be someone that can get this team playing. I think international football, despite the high pay that it gets, is quite easy. I wouldn't want to see someone go bananas with a style of play that the players aren't used to playing with. I think that's why Spain was successful. They had a manager that, against his better judgment, played a way that suited the players rather than forcing the players to play the way he wants to play. Louis van Gaal with this Dutch team at the moment, they are far more fluid than what we saw from a Louis van Gaal team at Manchester United, and it's proving to be successful for them because they've got players that are playing a lot higher tempo of fast and fluid football. Gareth Southgate is doing the opposite. He's imparting his style of play on this England team and therefore underperforming and not utilising the talent that this England team has got. The likes of James Maddison walk into most other international sides. England have got a selection of talent that rivals all except probably France. On paper, the England team and the Spanish team, there's nothing between them. On paper, this current Germany team probably should be a little bit ahead of England, but as you saw last night, quite evenly matched. Italy is going through a complete change of personnel. Didn't even manage to qualify for the World Cup. Turn England over. They need someone that can allow the players to express themselves. Teams do well in tournament football when they express themselves. There's been a couple of instances of teams sort of parking their bus away to finals, but generally it's teams that score goals that are going to go and do it. I see a lot of people comparing Solskjaer to Southgate, and the reason for that, I think they're very overly positive, and that's where the comparison ends. It's an extremely lazy comparison to compare Southgate to Solskjaer. Why? Southgate lost the final, Solskjaer lost the final. Okay. Southgate lost the final on the back of having the talent on the bench and not utilising it. You can't say the same for Solskjaer. Solskjaer was slow to make subs, in my opinion. But it was like he was turning around and looking at the likes of Fred and McTominay and going, he's not turning around and seeing Rashford and Grealish and Mount and Bellingham and genuinely top-class players the way Southgate is. And also, you saw Southgate tactically win games. Wasn't the way we would all want to go and win games, but you knew that when we went to the likes of Anfield and we went to the likes of the Etihad, or we went to Paris Saint-Germain away, you thought we had a chance because he was going to come up with something and try and hit you. Like, we might play defensive football, but we were defensive to attack. We were set up to hit people on the counter and we were fucking good at it. You can't compare that to what Gareth Southgate's doing, who's just trying to limit everything in games. And even his counter-attacking is just wrong, the way he sets it out. England win fucking nothing with this guy in charge. And I genuinely would get rid of him now. And arguing with one of my mates last night, and he was saying, like, he's earned the right to take him to the World Cup. I'm like, fuck that noise. World Cups run every 4 years. Do you think he can take you further in the World Cup? No. Well, if he can't, then fuck him off and bring someone in that can. Ravi with a super chat there says, why Ole, who finished second with United, isn't finding a top job, where Tuchel, who gets sacked with PSG, finds Chelsea and sacked and now find another top tier. Hence, people compare Ole to Southgate. Ole could get a top job, and he was linked with a Brighton job. I think he'd probably do better than trying to compete in the Premier League anyway, in all honesty, because it's off its nut. Mank says, I love England, always want us to do well, but it ain't happening under Southgate. Not slating Ole, but Southgate reminds me of him. Get nearly there, but can't get you over the line. But you saw Ole win big games. You don't see Southgate winning big games. Jack says, Southgate's tactics neutralise and ruin the talent of the England team. I agree with that. Could you say that about Ole? Ole, who won more 5-0 games than the rest of the other managers that United have had post-Fergie combined. That guy, neutralising talent, fucking didn't, did he? Patrick says, Ole would be a better England manager for sure. I actually think he would. Whitterbird says Southgate clearly not planning on being England manager after the World Cup as he's using a stale squad. Totally agree. Telling people that you're picking players based on what they did last year is mental, by the way. Som says, not fair to compare Ollie and Southgate. Ollie had a consistent style of play that worked for an entire season. Southgate can't even do it in 20. Pony says, can't get a manager for the first game in the World Cup groups. Kush could. You could if you had the balls, but here's the problem. Southgate's got no balls. The English FA have got no balls. That's why they appointed him. The way he won't play players with too much sauce is the way the English FA won't appoint anyone with too much sauce either. That's it. David Wilton says, reports are saying Southgate's still defending Maguire. I saw it. He did. He went to bat for him, to be fair to him. Levi says he was getting to the finals, then it fell apart like Southgate. Different reason. Totally fucking different reason. You can't compare. Like, that's such lazy surface level analysis. It's unreal. Simon says Southgate seems to want to silence legit criticism, get behind the lads beyond anything else. Now's not the time to criticise. Well, yeah, if not now, when? When is the time to criticise then? Like, you're seeing players that you're consistently picking, consistently making massive clangers in games. When can't you criticise him? When can you, like... You have to be allowed to have fair criticism on performances. I don't necessarily like it when people start talking about players' personal lives, but if you focus just on what a player's doing on the pitch, that is perfectly reasonable to criticise, especially when it's so schoolboy, some of the areas that they're being critical in. It's ridiculous. Andy says, imagine attacking, pressing football with the quality of the players in the England squad. Not this shit jock mentality, defensive bollocks. Bang on. Yeah, bang on. Absolutely bang on. There's no other way around it than that. Like, yeah, you've got talent in this side. You know, Bellingham and Rice, two hell of a players. That should be the starting pair for England. You know, how Dyer snuck in here. How Maguire and Shaw are our first choice but can't get a game for their club. Make that make sense. You got Tomori out here winning leagues. Ridiculous. SSB says, keep Southgate, his style of play is built for tournament football. France won being pragmatic. What? They were hard to beat. It wasn't being pragmatic. They played good football. I totally disagree. Darren says, can't we get back to Premier League football apart from the last 8 of the World Cup? I couldn't be bothered with international football. I like the tournaments. I hate the international breaks, for friendlies especially, but I like international tournaments. Notch says, France won because their players are better. Yeah. Jaws says, Maguire was decent yesterday. Penn was horrendous though. Right. How was he decent? Please tell me how he was doing. He dithered on the ball. You know, his penalty was just a catalogue of errors. He was constantly being dragged out of position. Come on, man. Let's be real here. He wasn't good or decent yesterday. He was poor. Rehan says, Steve, why Maguire thinks he's the best defender in the world but can't even pass a ball? I don't know. Bilal says Maguire was crap. Ed says Maguire and Pope were a 4 out of 10. Yvonne says I watch him live every week. He's the worst captain we've ever had. Zim says Maguire was okay in the first half. Second half was just so poor. Liam says get Dyche in. I actually think Dyche would be attacking with this England team. I think he had to cut his cloth accordingly as Burnley manager. I think he would go attacking with this. Abhinav Verma says apart from his mistakes and lack of scanning, he's a decent player. Faisal says this international break is a killer. Yeah, but we're done. After today, we're drawing a line under it and we'll pick it back up again just in time for the World Cup. Premier League football is back and we have got a right load of games in about 5 minutes. So we'll be back in that in a big way. Osama says we should stop talking about depressing England side and talk about United fixture coming this weekend. SSB says, Stephen, who will set the tempo for England in midfield, playing attacking football? You'll get cut open. None of these England midfielders can control a game at the highest level. You might have a point on that. I think Bellingham could. I think Rice and Bellingham as a 2, with one of the 10s like a mount in front of them. I think you could do that, and you can play with wingers. You could maybe go with Sancho and Rashford, and still play Harry Kane down the centre because he's going to act like a playmaker. I think you could comfortably do it. Two Shot Tino says, what's the chance of getting the interview back on with Dyche? It was Danny Higginbottom that was sorting it out for us. I'll get back in touch and see if we can box it off. Som says Mourinho will win the World Cup with the England team. He should have been appointed. Mylon says, off topic, I've become an England fan. Since as a South African, we've not been at the World Cup in ages. Bafana hasn't been worth looking at after Benny McCarthy's era. Brett says, it'll be very depressing seeing Bellingham turn out in a Liverpool shirt. I think that's where he's going. Fares says, I'm from Tanzania, but watching England play is boring. Southgate has no tactical nous. Even with Trent at his disposal, I reckon I could do a better job. You probably could, mate. Yep. It's these Nations Leagues, when they're treated like this, are fucking annoying. But it is what it is. We do have a World Cup to look forward to. And the World Cups are wicked, and despite the bullshit surrounding this World Cup, it'll still be a good World Cup. There'll still be tons and tons of football for us to watch, to analyse. With it being just before the January transfer window as well, we do a shitload of scout reports on players who are doing well, and we'll see what comes out of it. But that's my thoughts on England. I think they're shagged. I don't think Southgate's going to do a damn thing with his side. I don't think he's got the balls to do a thing with his side. Can you imagine going on the piss with Southgate? Zero charisma whatsoever. Zero charisma whatsoever. Just everyone bought into the fact he wore a fucking waistcoat. What the fuck? What the fuck? Anyway, I'm getting out of here. Cheers for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. We'll talk about United in the next one in a bit. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation